So, Mr. Introduction Master, what are we going to talk about? Have you ever been windsurfing actually?
I actually have.
Yes?
I have been windsurfing. And I stood up for about 5 seconds and then smashed my face into the water.
Was it down here in Ammer, basically?
Yeah,
where was it?
Yeah, the popular spot. Exactly. So I have a friend, and actually, so Andrew on the team, he used to spend a lot of time
he's a
on that.
kite surfer. That's a little bit different.
Well, that's what I did.
No,
It was not
that's no
windsurfing.
good.
Yeah,
okay.
see, there you go. Windsurfing, kite surfing. What is it actually for you? Is it wave surfing or is it windsurfing for you?
I mean, it's all different disciplines of windsurfing, but my absolute favorite is what I would call, well, I'm older now, so I guess medium-sized waves for me. I used to love going to Klitmøller in northern Jutland, but I think these days I should probably stay right clear and rather go to Hornbæk or Liseleje or some of the spots in northern parts of Sjælland, north of Copenhagen, if I go to Denmark.
For everyone who hasn't guessed it already, we have a guest here today. It's Thomas Hansen, currently working as president at Amplitude, and previously done a couple of other things. I think spent like 14 years at Microsoft, basically building up the business. Then you spent a couple of years at Dropbox. Also, some people might have heard about this already. You were the CRO of UiPath, and now, I mean, it's called president at Amplitude, but it's basically kind of similar to a CRO role, right? So just so we're getting this right.
It's a little bit different. So I am all up responsible for the top line and the P&L of the business. I do have a CRO working for me who is incredible, Nate Crook. He's been in the company for just over half a year, 9 months actually, as well as a COO, a CMO, and a head of customer success. So it's a great role. It's super fun. I've done a number of roles post Microsoft. This is company number 4 post Microsoft, and it's all been in the go-to-market realm. I would say both as president, I've been COO, I've been CRO a couple of times. But at the end of the day, you gotta own the top line. You got to own the customer relationships, and you got to own a responsible P&L.
No, absolutely. And I think what we like kind of doing a little bit of research, and obviously when someone goes on your LinkedIn profile, there's a lot of board member, investor, advisor slots as well. I think we found Dixer there as well, who is a customer of ours, and obviously kind of, I think you kind of probably know Mass pretty well and that team. What really stood out for us was your past as... was it windsurfer and as bartender, right?
That's
because
right.
it's really, I think it's really important for everyone listening, thinking, wow, that guy. But as we in German say, everyone is still only cooking with water, and that's the same thing here, I guess, right? So, do you have like 1 or 2 stories from your bartender windsurfer time to kind of ground you a little bit and make you a little bit more accessible for the audience?
You right on. So, listen, my passion besides my family is windsurfing. I started as a windsurfer when I was 14 years old on Roskilde Fjord, which is just north of Copenhagen, where my grandparents built a small, very humble beach cabin, actually 100 years ago, and it's still in the family. Now, I worked for a couple of summers in a local windsurfing store in Frederiksværk, a small town 40 minutes north of Copenhagen. And I had the pleasure of teaching folks to learn how to windsurf. You mentioned earlier on that you had a go at it. And I had the pleasure of helping a 72-year-old man learn to windsurf, and he was remarkably good. I helped an 8-year-old boy. He was also amazing. So it was a very accessible sport, lots of fun. And I've got very fun memories of it. I also had the pleasure of sailing in competitions for 3 seasons, also super fun. More fun than winning. I was not great. My greatest achievement was once ending up as the runner-up number 2 in a competition in southern Denmark. So I've had a lot of fun with it. And as for my days as a bartender, there's an expression: "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." So I'm not able to comment. I can't deny or confirm anything, and nothing ever happened.
So we know exactly what happened then. Wonderful. Nice. Really cool stuff actually. And when did you make the jump from good old Denmark to the US? Was it specifically then for Microsoft, or was it through, I think Dynamics was kind of here of Denmark first? Or how did you do it?
No, as I was doing my undergrad degree at the Copenhagen Business School, I also started working full time for a hardware company back in '92, so 31 years ago, called Olivetti. And when I finished my undergrad degree, I decided to take a year or two off before doing my master's. And I initially planned to take a year or two off and literally be a beach bum and go windsurfing on Maui. Mm-hmm. And I had a really good manager's manager at Olivetti. And he said to me, Thomas, don't be a fool. Get a job with Olivetti somewhere international and pick a place that's fun and get an adventure and earn a little bit of money. And I followed his great advice. And I ended up being offered in late '93 to go to South Africa 6 months before the first democratic elections. And, I ended up spending on and off more than 12 years living in South Africa in 4 different stints. That's also where I met my wife, Ingrid. We met in '95. We have 3 kids that are all born in South Africa, but they all have quadruple citizenships: Danish, Dutch, South African, and now American, US.
There you go.
In between the various stints in South Africa, we spent some time, 2 years in Turkey, in Istanbul, which was an amazing experience as well. We spent a year in Bangkok, Thailand, also incredible experience. And then 15 years ago, I was already working for Microsoft, first in South Africa, then in Turkey, and then back in Africa. And then an opportunity presented itself in 2009 to go to Seattle, to the Microsoft headquarters. And we made a family decision that the US would be a fantastic home for us longer term. It was safe, great educational opportunities, great opportunities for us as a family to thrive. And my wife and I, we only look back on that with fondness. So I worked at Microsoft in Seattle for 6 years. My last gig there, I ran the global SMB, small medium business sales, marketing operations for that. Mm-hmm. It was when I left, almost a $10 billion business, 2,000 people. So real scale, like at extreme levels. But 9.5 years ago, I had one of these amazing, lucky career and life changing moments. I got introduced to the then CEO of Sequoia Capital, one of the leading venture capitalist firms in the world. His name is Doug Leone. He's one of the most remarkable tech leaders. Long story short, that's how I got introduced to Drew and the gang, Dennis at Dropbox, and I ended up spending a couple of years there. Subsequently, I spent some time at Carbon Black, a cybersecurity company that we successfully IPO'd at NASDAQ, and eventually got acquired in a great outcome for our customers, for our investors, for our employees. We got acquired by VMware. Mm-hmm. Then I had a stint at UiPath, which was an amazing, wonderful experience working for the kindest, most genuine, humble, amazing human being I've ever met, Daniel Dines. We had lots of fun together. I still consider him a very close friend. We did an amazing scaling exercise during COVID. We grew the company in 2 years from $300 million US to $1 billion, and did one of the largest IPOs on NYSE in, when was it? May 2001, right during COVID, which was incredible. Now, then again, an opportunity presented itself. Again, the connective tissue is Sequoia Capital in all these startups, Dropbox, Carbon Black, UiPath, and then Amplitude. Yeah. A couple of friends at Sequoia called me and said to me, "Hey, Thomas, you should go and meet this guy. We think you'll enjoy him." So I got introduced to Spencer Skates, who's the co-founder and CEO of Amplitude. And we spent quite a bit of time together. Both Spencer and I believe in the power of face-to-face. So we met as we were dating, if you like. We met 4 times face-to-face. We spent 14 hours together face-to-face, including he actually flew down and visited me at my home here in Montecito. And our dating turned into a handshake. And I joined Amplitude in the summer of July 2022, so a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And look, I believe that the most important thing in any company, in any work you take on, is the people. And for me, one of the core reasons why I joined was, and still to this day, is Spencer. He is a little bit younger than me, 20 odd years younger than me. He is one of the most remarkable product and engineering leaders in the world. His insight, his brilliance is out of the scale. And I'm so happy I get the opportunity to work with him, to learn from him, to partner with him, and drive the go-to-market side of the house. And he focused more on the company leadership, the investors, the analysts, and of course, product, technology, and engineering. So a real wonderful partnership. But face to face, that was really important in shaping that relationship, and that's how we got going.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I mean, it's funny. You talked a lot about how you've been basically hopping around the globe to different gigs, and we're going to talk a bit about hopping around in the context of staying in the same job but actually meeting folks. And I think so Tony and I obviously talked a bit beforehand, and we kind of said, well, I wonder how many of our listeners actually spend the time, hop on a jet, go and meet a customer, go and meet a prospect, and go and meet a partner. We said probably it's not going to be that many actually. So
you know what? It's on that. I gotta interject and say something. I think something really negative, well, actually on a number of fronts have happened during the time of COVID, but specifically relating to this here, I think a lot of people have forgotten about the value of face-to-face. I think a lot of people are sitting on calls like this. Ironically, we're sitting on a call. But I think a lot of people have forgotten the value of getting in their car, jumping onto the subway, go to the airport, and go and spend time. Go and spend time with your colleagues. Go and spend time with people that you are contemplating hiring and meeting them face to face. Go and meet prospects, customers, partners, face to face. The value you get there, it's the read you get on this situation, the connected tissue you get, invaluable in my opinion.
And I think this is what we want to spend some time on digging into, right? So we have a couple of RevOps folks, CROs, people that, probably, very numbers driven. So we'll probably explore that side of that equation just a little bit, but it's not the full equation, obviously, right? Kind of, especially when you start talking connected tissue and the relationship, it's hard to quantify these things and it's silly to even try. But really kind of really thinking about this, right? When you have this, and I think you're right. It certainly started with COVID. Suddenly, hey, this works. I see it with myself. I'm like, after the whole COVID period, way less likely to jump on jets and be just away for like 2-3 days. Maybe me having 2 small kids since then also plays a role in this. But there's a little bit more of like, hey, it's actually kind of cozy to sleep in my own bed. And the thing is, right, how do you... first of all, you have been doing this for your whole career, right? I mean, this was kind of a pretty key part, I'm sure, and, helped you now to also land those fantastic jobs and those fantastic companies. Tell us a little bit, from your perspective, if you had to give like a couple of arguments for people to reconsider and say like, hey, stop those Zoom calls, jump on a jet instead. What would you tell them? What would you tell folks that are doubters and like, I really like my own bed a lot?
Look, there's this mathematical equation known as the art and science of sales. And over time, the equation has changed, the mix has changed. We're moving more and more and more towards the science of sales. We have data, we have incredible tools from companies like, of course, Salesforce, but also companies like HighSpot, Clary, Outreach, Gong, and the list goes on, that we can all use in various ways. And what it really provides us with is ultimately customer insights, but also ability to run propensity analysis to understand most likely next customer or most likely next customer to expand. Mm-hmm. So all those insights allows us to be far more precise in what we do. But I still think that part of the equation is the art of selling. And the art of selling, I'm not talking about going and playing golf with a customer or eating a big steak with them. Yeah. But there is magic. There's magic getting into a plane and on row 32D and have some cold chicken, but getting in front of the customer and spending time with them across various levels, a technical level, at economic buyer level, and everything up and down and in between, and really deeply dig into and understand what are the issues. But then there's also the human touch. There's the human touch where you actually meet someone and you connect at a human level. And once you've done that once or twice with a prospect or customer or partner, it allows you to leverage what we're doing right now, sitting on a Zoom call, sitting on a video call, and leveraging that connection you established to be able to make progress so much faster. So what I've found personally is once you've created that first human interaction face to face, thereafter working with that prospect, working with that customer online or mostly online becomes so much easier because that emotional connection has been established. How to quantify that, how to put that into a math equation, how to do an ROI on it, I really can't tell you. But what I can tell you is, look, I reflect on myself. I was sitting earlier this morning and making some notes for a video I'm about to drop on LinkedIn tomorrow. And I've been traveling in the last 4 months. I've been to Europe. I went to Amsterdam, Paris, London. I've been in the US across many places, including New York and San Francisco. Just come back from a 2-week trip to Korea, Singapore, and Sydney. I spent time with my teammates all over the world. Got to interview some people, hopefully future employees of Amplitude. But I got to meet 50 customers and prospects and partners. And that set of learnings I have from the meetings is now translating into a product roadmap. The learnings I got from the meeting is now translating into our training and enablement strategy internally for all of our colleagues, because I realized that I had some perceptions. I thought it was truths around where we were as a company in terms of how we sell, how we position things, and it was just not true. So some training and enablement are required there. But it also gave me an opportunity just to create those human relationships where it is now so much easier to follow up on an email, on a Slack, on a video call, and move things forward, as opposed to folks that you haven't met face to face.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And so when you build out, let's get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, by the way, because I think our audience might really appreciate that. So I'm thinking of Amplitude, and now I'm thinking, you probably have a like a mid-market segment, a corporate segment, maybe an enterprise segment, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I would assume that the amount of travel varies between those segments, simply because, hey, some of those motions you can maybe not afford that, right? Or is that wrong? Is that not how you run it, right? And follow-up question on this one, as you then, maybe answer this, it's almost like, do you recommend doing this as early as possible in the process, in the sales process, in the customer life journey? Or do you recommend, once you've moved this to this stage and, have certain, probability around this, maybe closing? Kind of tell us a little bit, how people should be thinking about it, and how should they be building this into their go-to-market motions?
All right. So obviously, go-to-market motions vary from company to company, from category to category. Also, are you in B2C? Are you in B2B? Etc. But here's what I firmly believe in. Go and serve the customers where they want to be served. So embrace a multi-channel go-to-market strategy. What do I mean with that? Well, there are at least 3, if not 4 different levers in terms of how you can sell. At the very low end, serving SMB and or consumers and or small teams in larger companies, I highly recommend anyone out there, if it's at all feasible, to explore a PLG, a self-serve, find, try, buy sales motion. We launched that after running tests for 9 months at Amplitude. We launched in October. And whilst I can't discuss numbers, given that Amplitude is a publicly traded company on NASDAQ, what I can say is, even I, having done this before, am surprised at the progress we're making and how many customers we've gained in the last 9 weeks. So number 1, self-serve, find, try, buy, product-led growth. Golden. What is so incredible about it is it's one of those non-linear businesses where for every $1 million, you don't have to throw another 4 sellers at it. It's a technology and marketing driven business that requires very few human beings. So once you get it to scale, like companies like Dropbox have done a world-class job at, you run an incredibly profitable machine. So that's number one. Number two, considering leveraging partners, transactional channel partners, system integrators, white label relationships, OEM type relationships, what have you. That can give you reach into customers that you otherwise wouldn't be able to serve and find, or they wouldn't want to work with you directly. It gives you ability to go and serve customers in countries where economically it's not viable to go and serve the customers. By the way, in case folks don't know, mathematically speaking, around about 80% of most software vendors in the B2B space, software vendors, top line revenue comes from 18 countries. So you really want to be thoughtful around where you invest people on the ground. So PLG, self-serve, find, try, buy. Number 2, embrace channel. Number 3, I would say inside sales engine. We call it velocity. And really, I think of it partially as a PLS, a product-led sales engine, where you're leveraging a lot of the top of the funnel you get from your PLG motion, including some of the paying customers that actually has opportunity to be upsold into higher volumes, into cross-sold into other blades in your platform, what have you. That is a segment where you seldomly would have sellers traveling. However, occasionally that you come across customers in this segment that you grow with and you mature, and over time you actually go and see them. We have a wonderful customer. This is a small little startup in France, in Paris, run by an amazing leader called Alexi. And we've had the opportunity to first serve them for free. Then they became a smaller customer, then a medium customer. Now they are what I would call a very large, important customer for us. That I've been to the offices, I think 3 times in Paris. By the way, that company is the number 1 downloaded app on the Android and iOS marketplace called Be Real. It's the coolest, one of the coolest things in social networking. In case you're not on it, you should be on it. So number 3, inside sales, very little travel. And then number 4, enterprise sales. And this is where you have the enterprise sellers that go out and travel. They engage with customers face to face, but also do a lot of work online, in this new world of working. I will say this is where I think we have to be a little bit critical of what the pandemic has done to us, and get our sellers and our SEs and our customer success managers out again with the customers more face to face. I think that's where we have gone a little bit wrong, and I'm working on correcting that in Amplitude, and I think we made a lot of progress. I'm proud of our team in Amplitude. But here's the thing: if you only deploy an enterprise sales model and or couple it with an inside sales engine, the challenge with that is it's not really economically scalable. The challenge with it is for every $1 million you want, you need to add 1, 2, 3 more sellers. So when you look at the shape of your P&L, it's very boring and linear. So you gotta find something in your go-to-market strategy that allows you to scale in a non-linear fashion. You gotta find that tipping point. To me, a couple of the tipping points I've spoken about already is 1, embrace PLG, product-led growth, self-serve, find, try, buy, as well as also embracing 1 or multiple channel motions. So work with transactional partners to get reach into other countries, other segments, and work with system integrators, OEMs, white label, telcos, you name it. Those are ways that you can get your business to scale in a non-linear fashion and really get to the rule of 40 and profitability and positive cash flow, which of course matters specifically in this economic environment.
We had Jacco van der Korf from Winning by Design also on the show, and he was actually also talking about face-to-face, which is kind of one of the reasons I was like, hey, that could be super interesting to discuss with you. Really? One of his theories is basically you have this whole tooling space, and you mentioned some of those vendors that are very aggressive in, enabling all teams to send out more stuff. You have this whole generative AI space that helps make it even easier. Mm-hmm. And one of his points was basically, hey, what we will probably start seeing is a bit of a return to and this was him, 20 years ago, basically traveling salesman, right? More face-to-face. Some of that stuff simply can't be automated away by technology. Some of that stuff is connecting to that prospect, to that buyer in a different way. Do you, do you see almost, the world in a similar way, or even more, fundamental in the approach, like has actually nothing to do with all of that additional technology stuff that happened? That thing has been true for the last probably 500 years of sales. It has certainly been true for the last 30 years of sales, and it's going to be true for the next 100 years of sales as well. Kind of how do you see that, and how do you see kind of the newest impact, maybe shaping this face-to-face piece, which I would say, during COVID, a lot of people were like, oh, it's proven we don't need it, right? Which is kind of the wrong direction.
Gosh, there was a lot in that question and that statement. Let's unpack it. Hey, I believe face-to-face continues to matter a great deal, as I mentioned earlier. However, let's add that intelligence layer to it through propensity analysis. So we have all this wonderful technology from some of the vendors I mentioned earlier and many others. And if you deploy that in an intelligent fashion, it really allows you to do far smarter targeting and optimize the time of your sellers as they go travel and as they are online, as they are on phone calls. I'll tell you a quick story to give you a little bit of a sense of, at its simplest format, how it could work. Some years ago, I worked for another company, and a couple of really smart folks developed a propensity analysis tool that basically sucked in the information from their paid for and free user base and allowed them to create a tool we named Starcatcher. So it was really a way of looking across 100,000 plus free and paying customers, deploy propensity analysis, and go in and look at all the data you had and understand, okay, is there some reasons to engage? Now, I remember one story where we were keen to engage a customer, a large company in the Pacific Northwest. And we went into this tool, into Starcatcher. And there weren't a paying customer at an enterprise level. But we found that there were a number of small sub-teams, small teams in this large enterprise that actually were paying for, teams of 10, 20 people. And one of them was the CMO, the chief marketing officer of that company. So I literally picked up the phone and I called this guy and said, buddy, it's your best friend from technology vendor ABC. I see you're using the tool. Tell me how you're using it. And the guy went on to talk for 20 minutes with passion, with pride, with enthusiasm around the value of it. So what do? You jump onto it and say, my friend, I happen to be in your neighbor next week. Can I invite you out for a cup of coffee? So I went there together with our seller on it, got the seller introduced. The chief marketing officer was super kind to introduce us to the chief information officer of that company. Long story short, that company, 3 months later, although they were paying for competing technology from another very large software company based in Redmond, Washington, they signed $1 million plus deal with us at an enterprise level.
Yeah.
And going there, using data, meeting face to face, making that warm connection, getting introduced to another person, and then working face to face and really understanding how we could help them, that made the difference. Yeah. So I'm again, it brings me back to the notion of the art and science of sales. That intelligent connection, I think there's some beauty in that, real beauty.
I'm kind of happy you made that example, because I was going to say, we had an insurance broker who wanted to visit us personally at home. And I said, I don't want to have a visit physically from an insurance broker. That he can send us an email, we can hop on a call. Because my question was going to be, do you see actually on the other side of the coin that those people you want to meet with, they're more reluctant to say, well, actually, why meet? Let's hop on a call. It's more convenient. When we meet physically, it's going to take up more of our time. And have you seen that kind of side of the coin as well?
I think everybody is trying to find ways to become more efficient. I think what COVID has taught all of us is a little bit more respect for boundaries between work and life. I don't believe in the concept of work-life balance. I believe in the concept of work-life harmony. So I think what it has taught us is finding a better way to keep the working hours in a shape that still allows us to have a higher quality of life. And that I see happening not just in the US, but around the world. I actually think that's a healthy outcome of what the pandemic has taught us. So to answer your question, I think a lot of folks are reverting, trying to be more efficient and leverage video calls, leverage Zoom and Teams and what have you, as well as just phone calls. I do go a little bit old school. So frankly, when it comes to larger transactions where I am the customer or potential customer, whether it's privately or in my working life, I do actually encourage face-to-face. That allows you to whiteboard, ideate, be more creative together in a room. I find value in that. And, the companies I work with as partners, as vendors, certainly have arisen to that and have done a good job. So I think it depends a little bit. Frankly, look, there's also just some customers out there now live in very, very distributed environments where the notion of they have a headquarter, they have an office you go to, doesn't exist anymore. So that's a very different challenge. So that brings me into the notion of I see a reemergence of industry conferences in a massive way. I'm not particularly proud of this, but I've been to Las Vegas 4 times this year to 4 different conferences. And in this case, I'll break the rule of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas and just share with you. I was talking to one of my friends who's on the board of directors of MGM, which is one of the larger chains of casinos, hotels in Las Vegas. And he was telling me that they literally fully booked out for the next year, half or 2 years, I think he said, which is remarkable. So there certainly is a resurgence of folks want to come together with their partner, with their vendor, but moreover, other customers like-minded and learn, and in the process probably also have a little bit of fun together, I hope. So that's another thing that I've seen happening post-COVID, which, when you think about it, it's a very productive way, both for the vendor, but also for the prospective customers or customers to go to a location and learn and have some fun and take that back home and run a bit more productive business.
So I think at this point, probably, hopefully, we have convinced a few people that they should actually go and meet folks. But I can also foresee the next problem, that there's a wonderful listener out there going, yeah, we should go and meet folks. We're not doing it today. How do we start building up this culture? What should the process for us be as a business? Because ultimately you also want to tie it to outcomes that are important to the business. So how do we get started?
Well, so first of all, I don't believe in telling. I believe in leading by example. So as I mentioned, I've traveled extensively. As a matter of fact, I was checking my hotel app from my preferred hotel chain the other day. And just from that hotel chain, this calendar year, 2023, I've spent 118 nights in their hotels. Mm-hmm. So I believe not in telling, but leading by example and showing the value. Mm-hmm. I was in New York, 4 weeks ago or something like that. And I was only there for 2.5 days. I did 14 customer and prospect meetings face-to-face in 2.5 days. And one of our amazing sellers, his name is Brian. He and I have done quite a few customer meetings together. I go to New York every 3 months, and he's very good in normally setting up 5-ish meetings. He sat down and said, Thomas, I just want to give you a scorecard, a report back on your last trip. On your last trip, we met 4 prospects, and I'm proud to tell you 4 out of the 4, 2 of them have become customers. So that was his way of giving me feedback and scoring me as his colleague in partnering with him. I thought that was super neat, really.
And I think kind of the, a little bit of a distilled piece here is actually, well, yes, you spend 2.5 days in New York, but that doesn't mean you spend 2 days to meet one prospect or one customer. Kind of the trick is you want to, add as many as you can, right? Because really the big pushback I think people in the head will have is like, well, sorry, I just can't afford it. Maybe they put it on the ACV and say like, we're selling mid-market deals, commercial deals, we can't jump on a jet all the time, doesn't work. But ultimately it's going to be about like, well, it just doesn't, sorry, we need to be more efficient. Everyone is pushing us, and basically kind of use that as the reason, right? But alternatively, or kind of, almost from an opposite perspective, is like, well, if you get 14 sessions into those 2 days, and I think no one is disbelieving that you build more trust, you probably build more of a bond, you kind of get the champion to be a champion, and all of that stuff. And also if someone says, hey, this is the timeline, it's a different commitment to give to someone when you have met face-to-face before, right? So I think that's 100%. Pretty clear. The trick really is, well, how do you get it done in a smart way? And a smart way is not to kind of fly to one town, have one meeting and return. It's to, push as much, face-to-face time with customers. And that could be meetings. It could be a coffee. It could be a dinner. Jaco mentioned it could be a run. It could be, New York on the docks. You could play golf if you wanted to. But like, that's kind of the little bit the hidden trick here, right? You just need to get a little bit smart around setting the stuff up.
Totally. You got to be planful. So I normally plan my time on a rolling 3-4 months basis. So look, I have to balance one, doing my full-time job as president of Amplitude, which is pretty time demanding, but also to mix in that I sit on 2 boards. So I have recurring board meetings there and occasional outside of board meetings discussions. I'm an advisor to a red hot startup in the AI space. I'm also an investor through a small VC fund that also takes a little bit of time. So I have to figure out, how do I do all this in and outside of reasonable working hours and still get to enjoy my weekend at home with my wife. So I plan out 3 months. I know right now, end of February, I'm going to be in Europe in 4 countries. I know in March, I'm going to be in New York. I know in April, I'm going to be in Tokyo. And that allows me to be thoughtful, planful of how I schedule the trips. So I optimize my time and don't impact too many weekends, which I don't want to. But also provides my colleagues opportunity to go out and actually spend time well in advance. So it's not a last minute panic. Trying to get a good array of meetings set up with prospects, with partners, with customers, perhaps with press, perhaps with analysts. So planfulness does help. However, look, let's not underestimate the notion of luck and randomness. And sometimes stuff happens and you just got to jump on a plane and go to one place and do one meeting because it matters. And I did that back in December last year. I literally jumped on a plane and went and had dinner in Tokyo with a very, very important telco company in Japan. And the return on that is X 1000%. So sometimes you just gotta say, I drop everything else and this one prospect, this one customer matters. And that was indeed the case with this one specific telco customer in Japan.
I have another follow-up question.
Okay.
So no, we
had to coordinate.
We have our little hand signs, and I feel we kind of gotten off the track here. No, so and this is and again, right? I'm trying to make this a little bit more nitty-gritty, down to earth. So you jump on a plane, you kind of have this meeting. And the quality of the meeting itself is much better than over Zoom, right? Kind of period. I think that's pretty straightforward. But then there's so much magic before and after the meeting, right? It's not just this 1 hour or the 2 hours you kind of carve out and have the conversation. There's actually lots of stuff happening around that simply this just doesn't exist anymore. In the Zoom era, right? Kind of. Do you have like a story or two where like, hey, this 10-minute pre-meeting was actually the whole meeting, and and then in the rest of the 2 hours, we kind of got the other things done? Or kind of how did this, do you have like a story there that kind of connects to this?
Let me share with you one of the more embarrassing moments in my career. So this goes back to, let me just think. This goes back to August 2006. I was a general manager or CEO for Microsoft in Sub-Saharan Africa. I was week number 5 in role, and we had a government leaders forum conference organized by Microsoft in Cape Town in South Africa. We had 4 presidents of countries coming in. We had 20 ministers of IT, and the keynote speakers was the famous Dr. Sheikh Diarra, as well as Bill and Bill. So Bill Clinton and Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. So as the GM or CEO for Microsoft's business in Sub-Saharan Africa, I was the host for Bill and Bill. And on day 1 after Bill Gates arrived, I had to go in and brief him on all the meetings he's going to have with the presidents, head of states, as well as a few IT ministers. I walk in there. My head of public sector had prepared, the 10 briefing notes for Bill. I'd read them. But I was green. I was, as I mentioned, 5 weeks into the job. I walked into the briefing meeting with Bill together with my head of public sector. And Bill, as always, was super well prepared. And as you probably can imagine, he is wicked smart. So he straight away goes into questions on each meeting. And I think in the hour we spent with him, he probably asked 15 or 20 questions. And as much as I had prepared and read it, I had never met any of them. I didn't have a connection. I didn't know more background than what was in the meeting briefs. And Bill was asking outside of the meeting briefs, and I had no clue. I could not answer a single question. And that was obviously pretty embarrassing for me, but thank goodness my head of public sector was in the meeting and did a fabulous job in answering all questions. Then I went on to, joining Bill for all the meetings with the heads of states and with the presidents and with some ministers of IT. And it was so inspirational to see how Bill was able to face-to-face connect with them in the most humble, genuine, caring way, and at the same time drive the Microsoft agenda. And, what I took away from that is you got to know your swear word. You got to know your stuff. You really got to know your stuff. And it taught me a lesson in terms of my own preparedness to go into meetings with more senior colleagues, but it also taught me a lesson in terms of what I should set as expectations to my team members in terms of how they should brief me, but it also taught me a lesson in humility. Seeing how Bill Gates was so humble in his engagement, both with me and my public sector lead, never had a choice word to me, although I knew nothing. And his humility in engaging with customers and genuine caring. I've taken that as a lesson with me in terms of how I work with my teams and also how I work with customers, with prospects. You gotta be thirsty for learning. You gotta be really, really genuinely interested in understanding and getting to the point of what really matters for the prospect and customer and go and try to add value on that. But you also got to have a little bit of empathy for your colleagues in terms of where they're at and what they know and what the context is for them and what's happening in their lives at the point in time, to make sure that you're not driving too hard. Because there's a fine balance when you are living in this world of being a chief revenue officer or COO or president or a frontline sales manager. How hard do you push your team? I mean, think about it this way. As we're recording this, I think today, I'm just checking, it's December 19th. And, many tech companies in B2B follow the calendar year as their fiscal year end. So, right now we all have, what do we have? 6-7 working days effectively left to go and close the year. So of course you want to go and drive your teams and engage with the customers and apply the appropriate level of pressure to get things across the line. But you also got to apply a little bit of empathy. It's, it's holiday season. Many folks are celebrating Christmas and other holidays, and you got to make sure that you engage in a way where you have a little bit of empathy for, what might be going on in their private lives. They're out shopping for their kids for Christmas and. So So there's always a fine balance here.
Thomas, thank you so much. Thank you for the Bill and Bill story. Thank you for all the other stories. I think a bunch of stuff to take away from here, not only face-to-face. I mean, this was almost the vehicle that we use in order to kind of explore a couple of cool stories that you had to share. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, again, thank you for sharing so much wisdom with the rest of the listeners here. Thanks so much, Thomas.
Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. This was fun.
Wonderful. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Happy holidays.